right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mindset Talks, where we're trying to get into the mind of a top producer in real estate or in business. Today, I'm very excited because I have a friend on, someone who I have role played with, prospected with, been in mastermind groups together. I've seen her in action, and there's definitely a lot to learn from. So I'd like to welcome Nora Avalos. Welcome,
Thank you,
Nora.
Rob.
You're
Excited to
welcome.
be here.
Thanks for being here. So let's start by giving the audience a little background. What market are you in, and how long have you been in the business?
Yes, I had been on the business over 25 years, and I cover Brooklyn, Queens, and Nassau. So
Okay,
big place.
awesome. New York, correct?
Right, New York.
Awesome. Terrific. And then 25 years, what was your personal best in terms of transactions in a year?
I believe 84.
84?
84.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mhm,
Awesome.
mhm,
And
mhm.
then how about this year? What's transaction-wise your goal this year?
This year is going to be close to 70.
70. Awesome.
Mhm,
Wow. Good for
mhm.
you. So doing a lot of business. How does that break down in terms of listing sold versus buyer sales?
Always a lot more listings sold. I
Okay.
would say is going to be always close to 70, a little bit 69, 68, or 70, 72%, and the
Okay.
difference on buyer sales, but always more listings sold.
Okay. So in that 70% range, give or take for listings. Okay, good. So very
Correct.
listings. Now, when you started your career early on, was it always that way?
Oh, no, I started doing rentals.
Oh, wow.
And then I switched completely to sales.
Okay.
And at the beginning, I think for at least 4 or 5 years, I did both sales and buyers.
Okay.
And it was a lot of hard work,
Mhm.
very hard work. And then I decided just to stick to the listings, and then that's how I did the transition. It took me like 18 months to do the transition from
Wow.
listing and selling agent to just listing agent.
Okay. So you started with rentals, then you started doing both buyer seller. What motivated you to really switch towards listings?
Because you have more control of the market.
Mm,
It's like you are hiding everyone on the market to work for you.
mm,
And if the deal by any chance, it doesn't go that happen, it doesn't
yep.
happen that often that deals go
Sure.
bad. But if it goes bad, if you are just the buyer, you lose the deal, you have nothing left. If you are the listing agent, you can resell it again.
Mm. So there's some strong benefits. That's a great point. All the agents in the marketplace essentially are working for you when they're showing your listing.
Exactly. You can hire the whole market to work for you.
So you can manage your time a little bit better, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about today. What's the inventory like in general in your market in New York?
Right now, we have 10 months of supply.
10 months of supply. Okay.
At the same time, is not a true supply
Okay.
because
Explain.
still we have a I don't think no other market has 10 months of supply.
Right. That's rare for sure. I
Yeah,
haven't heard of
most
that,
of the
right?
markets they have 1 or 2 months, sometimes less than a month, but we have a lot of bad inventory, people that are not being realistic to sell. So when you
Mm,
go, it's not really a lot of real inventory ready to sell. But
got
the
you.
ones that are priced right, they say like this.
So if it's priced right, it's still selling, but there's a lot of people, maybe because they've heard the market's been so good, who are really going for above market pricing, and they're just sitting.
Mhm, mhm. And
Okay.
sometimes they just don't tell them the truth.
Of course. So for you, being so listings heavy, how are you dealing with that right now? How are you still able to, maintain and do 70 transactions, very listing
Mm.
heavy, in a market where a lot of people are just overpricing and they're sitting?
Um, if they don't, if they don't have the motivation, I just pass on it. I
Okay.
just move on. If they had the motivation, even if they want to start a little bit higher, I'm willing to work with them, but always telling them the truth up front.
Mm,
So if we had to come down, they knew I told them that.
mm.
but no matter they had no motivation. When they have motivation, it's easy to work on the price. When they have no motivation, usually you cannot sell it.
You touched on something really good there. I think really in any market, telling the seller the truth from the beginning, I think is really, really important to manage their expectations. And so that they know what to expect through the transaction, right? So they're not caught off guard. So I think it's great that you do that. Is it hard for you to turn down a listing? I know for a lot of agents, it can be hard to walk away from a listing if the seller's unrealistic and it's just going to sit there.
I wouldn't say so. I don't think it has become that hard because I know when I price correctly will sell. Like I just sold 2 listings in less than 2 weeks. Or having them listed. One of them I listed with the market for $838. I got it sold for $895.
So you can still sell over asking price despite the higher inventory in your
Still.
Good.
So if we do the right thing and we tell the truth, usually things are easier.
I agree.
If the people had no motivation, no matter if we list them, they're not going to sell. I don't know if it ever happened to you, then sometimes you still listed. You get them the price and they don't sell.
Sure. People change. Sometimes they change their mind, especially like you said, if the motivation's not there. So having that conversation up front can save everyone a lot of time, right?
And you always having your integrity to tell them the truth.
100%. That's a really good point. I was going to touch on this a little later, but I think this is actually a good segue. Part of the reason that you're able to turn down the business that's not realistic is because you're so good at finding business. Is that fair to say?
I will say we always can be better.
Yeah.
But if we look for business every day, it's easier to turn down.
100%. And that's
If
very
you're just
humble.
waiting for the business to find you, it's hard to say no.
And that's very humble of you because you are very good at it. And it's because of what you just said. You don't just sit there and wait and hope that your phone rings. You're actually, so what does that look like for you, finding business? How do you do that right now in
Like
this day?
a lot of people with the pandemic, they stop working.
Yeah.
I never stop. I don't remember a day that I had not prospect. Some days I prospect more than others, but I prospect every day. Like in the pandemic, I started to work from home, and 7 o'clock, I'm ready to work like if I was going to my office. If I had to go to an appointment, I'm ready, dress, makeup, perfume, jewelry, everything, I'm ready. Most people were doing it from pajamas. You can never get it.
No.
The mindset can never be the same. So I had never stopped working. Even in New York, you shouldn't call for 2.5 years expires. I did call. So I think if we do what it has to be done, you are easy to say no when people really don't want to sell.
That's so good. Because you really set the expectation, right? Even if you don't have an appointment that day, you still dress properly. Like you said, you do your makeup, you go on the prospecting calls expecting to set an appointment. And in the pandemic, especially, I mean, what an advantage that must have been for you to keep that habit through that time. Because a lot of people stopped during that time and they lost the habit, right? It was hard for them to restart.
And a lot of people lost the habit of prospecting because in their market was so good. I never had that great market.
Yeah.
We had always had, in the pandemic, a market went to 33 months of supply. And then we kept coming down to 11 and 12 and 13. I never had a month or 2 or 3 months, never in my life.
And just to put that into comparison for people, because Nora's New York, I'm Connecticut. A lot of her buyers were coming into Connecticut. Sellers were coming into Connecticut because they wanted to leave New York. So just to put that into perspective, we have maybe 3 weeks worth of inventory, maybe a month. And she's talking about that's right now. She's talking about there were times with 33 months. That is a very difficult environment to navigate as an agent. I think sometimes agents, we find the wrong in something. Like right now, we're complaining about the inventory being low, but it's never going to be perfect, right? Whether it's 33 months worth of inventory or low, if we're making our calls every day, it's going to work itself out, right?
Always work out.
Yeah. So I know you started with rentals. How did you get into real estate?
Very funny. People started to come in to me looking for apartments, and I
Okay.
used to ask them, what about if I get you a house? And I didn't know how to sell. And I
Okay.
said, how much money do you have? And they said, very little. I said, if I'm able to get you a house with that, will you buy it? And then sometimes they say no. And then they call me later and said, you know what? I kept thinking about it. Okay, let's go and find a house. And I used to work in an office that they had rental department and sale department. I
Okay.
was on the rental department.
Okay.
Starting to sell that way, it was a year that I was the top agent of sales and top agent of rentals.
Wow.
And to me, that was so weird because I was just selling by coincidence. I didn't know how to sell. And then I said I had to go to another office where they train me and I feel like I know how to sell.
Gotcha.
And that's when I changed offices because I wanted to learn. And that's when I decided just to go sales.
Gotcha. Okay. So it kind of just happened that people were just talking to you about real estate and you would just naturally try to help them in the early years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you started to get the desire, had a little success with it, started to get the desire to go and learn more.
Correct.
What happened in those early years? Because we're in a business where a lot of agents don't make it, right? It's very hard. It can be very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in those early years that you think really got your business off the ground, got you some traction?
That I will not advise.
Okay.
I
Okay.
work very hard. I
Okay.
used to get to the office at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning. I
Wow.
had the keys of the office. I was the only one that had the keys because I was the only one that wanted to work so hard. And I went home 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. At that time, I didn't have no assistant. So early in the morning and late on the evening, I did all the paperwork and all what it had to be done. And during the day, I went to the appointments.
Wow.
You don't have to work that hard.
Mhm.
I learned that you need to get somebody to help you. You need to have an assistant because otherwise you can just get burned out.
Mm.
I remember God was giving me all the signals to tell me, you're working too hard, and I was not listening.
Mm.
I remember I got all cold sores in my mouth, but it was like 100. I was just like this.
Yeah.
My ingrown nails on both feet, they got bad. I went to work leaping, but I didn't stop going.
Mm.
I went to the doctor. They told me I had cancer. They had to do a surgery on me. They told me you had to rest. I did not rest.
Wow.
So what I learned is there are better ways, but I
Mm.
didn't have better ways. I went to an office because I was promised a lot of training.
Mm-hmm.
It was just promises.
Gotcha.
So I think that just keeping going and never stop no matter what, suddenly everything start to come back. I
Yeah.
remember I went to a convention. I used to work at that time with Prudential.
Yep.
And I went to a convention, and I remember I went to my ferry and I told him, I heard your tapes. You say get the best car, get a house, get the best clothes, but I didn't know nothing else. And at that time was no internet. I didn't know how to find him. And he said, here is all the training. He gave me all his tapes. At that time was tapes.
Yeah.
And I went and I got it. I remember I was crying to tell him, this has been very hard, but I did get the Mercedes. I bought the house. I got the expensive clothes, but it was so hard. But being on the convention, I got fired on my listing sold.
Wow.
And that's
While
when
you
I
were
got,
there?
while I was there.
Gotcha.
And then that was like the point to take off. So it was not that I studied already, it was just the accumulation effect.
Got you. Okay. So you're saying if you had to do it again, obviously there's hard work, but if you had to do it again, you would have pulled back a little bit. You wouldn't have gone so intense in the early years.
I will say I will be very consistent. I
Yep.
will work even 10, 20 hours per day, but I was working 16 to 18.
Right. Which
You don't
is
need to do that.
right.
And I think I was working 6.5 days, if not 7. You don't need to do that.
Right. Because
Right
especially in the
now,
early
right now I work about 4.5
four and a
days.
half. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Because in the early years you do have to put in a little extra, right? But what you're saying is 16 is too far. You got to
I,
draw the line. You got to draw the line somewhere, or you're not going to be in it long term.
10 to 12, 5 days per week.
Yeah. And let's talk about your mindset of that. Because back then, obviously, you were pushing too hard. What kept you focused to keep moving forward and grow your business that consistently, that often?
Very important to have what's your goal. I remember when I said buy a house, I didn't have a house at that
Yeah.
time when I started. I went to buy a house with almost no money.
Okay.
I needed to pay the Mercedes, I needed to pay the house, I need to
Yeah.
pay all what I bought.
Yeah.
So that was actually more than motivation. That was a commitment that I had to pay people, and I never pay late to no one.
Hmm.
I don't know how I did it. It was very hard, but I always went straight and I always paid everybody on time. So it was not an option. I had to make it or make it. That was the only two choices I had.
So you made some big commitments. You put yourself out of your comfort zone, and that helped really dial in your focus and propel your career forward in those early years.
That's right.
Did you have help too? Did you have accountability partners? And I know you do now, but
No,
in those,
no.
yeah, it was
I
just
wish, I wish. No, I didn't have no one at that time.
okay.
The
Which
only
makes
thing that I had that I cannot thinking of is my husband,
good.
that he has always supported me a lot.
Aw, that's really important to have a spouse that supports. I'm also lucky with that. It's very hard to keep moving forward without that. So that's terrific that you've had it all these years. 25 years, when you started with the rentals and then you really propelled upward as you've gone, and now you're in that 70, 80 year, a deal a year range. Um, were there challenges along the way, or were you able to kind of always incrementally grow each year?
No, it has been challenges always. Um, Sometimes challenges also with the health.
Sure.
Um, there are always challenges, but I will say that if you are consistent, even you go up and down a little bit, is not drastic.
Hmm.
You can always make good money.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that I had been going up, but of course, depending on things that go like a 2009, 2010, that was tough years too. Was a lot of listings, but people owe more than what they could sell it for. At the same time, if you always look for business, you always find people that really can afford to sell, and they're having the motivation. You just need to really look well and qualify so you don't waste time and you don't get burned out, because you just go to everyone and you just try to help everyone, even they are not ready or they don't have the means to buy or sell, because some people, they just cannot sell. They owe more than what the house is worth, and
Right.
they don't have the money to pay the difference, and they don't want to go to your sale or those things. So you just need to wish them the best and do your best, but it's so much that you can do. Sometimes we try to perform miracles, and we have to be realistic with that.
Well, and it's not even just, for us, it's for them too, right? If we don't pre-qualify and we don't ask them the right questions, we're wasting that client or that prospect's time, and where they could get the right help sooner rather than
Mhm.
us not doing those things, and then we waste everyone's time, right?
Correct.
So okay, so obviously there's challenges that come up along the way. What do you do for your mindset? What do you do to stay strong and help you get through those challenging times a little easier?
That's a great question. I get up very early because I
Yeah.
need that time for me. Right now, I'm getting at a 4:15.
Okay.
Between 4:15 and 7 o'clock, that's my time.
Good.
I meditate, I do exercises, I read the Bible, and I read books. Every day I'm reading a little piece of one or two books. And
Awesome.
I read the Bible about 10-15 minutes.
Good.
And now I'm even getting another new thing because I'm getting into a new system of eating and more advanced help is going out to the sunrise and walking, doing grounding, meaning walking on the grass. I do that
With
every morning for half an hour.
with no shoes on?
No shoes on.
Okay.
Okay, and that's supposed to give you a lot of health. Also, being out there when the sunrise, you get a lot of different things. When you go to the sunrise, when you go to the middle of the day and to the evening, you get three different things from the sun at the three different times.
Mm.
Also, go out to the sunset, even if you do it only for 5 to 15 minutes. I usually go in the morning half an hour, in the evening about 15 minutes. During the day, if I have appointments, of course, whatever I'm doing, but that's about it. But it's supposed to bring you a lot more strength.
I I uh, I love how specific you were there because, and just tying it into what you were saying earlier about how you burnt out in those early years. A lot of us just want to work, 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 but taking the time, to ground ourselves and be able to think clearly mentally, doing some of these little things for our health. And Nora's named a few. There's certainly lots of things we can do. Everyone responds to different things, right? We got to find what works for us, but having some type of morning routine in place is so important. So when those challenges come up, we can stay calm and present and focused to solve those problems. So
Yeah,
I love
morning
that.
and also evening routine. We
Go
have to
ahead. Tell us about.
remember the next day starts the night before.
Okay. Tell me more.
So b- I end my day putting my numbers into my analyzer. We have
Okay.
this thing that keep tracks of what we're doing.
Okay.
Then I text my accountability partners and
Okay.
report what did I accomplish that day.
Yep.
Then I have a report for myself that I take and count all the things that are important to me that day. How many did I accomplish? Yesterday I accomplished 100%, but there are days that I accomplish 60, 70, 80%. To me, if I'm close to 80 and up, I'm very happy. But usually I never do less than 60%.
Mm.
And then I go to bed early. I leave all my clothes and all my accessories ready the night before for the next day, so I don't waste time the next day thinking, what do I wear? I look at the weather, so I see what should I wear, and then I leave all of that ready. But I am going to bed. I'm on bed by 9 o'clock, no later than 9:15. I'm trying to get even earlier.
Love it. So you're getting a minimum of 7 hours still because we know sleep's important. Sometimes more. You're tracking your numbers. I can attest to the accountability because we've been accountability partners for probably 4 or 5 years now, maybe more. And
Mm-hmm.
every night I know her numbers. She sends them over, and I do the same with her. I share mine. And I like what you said about you keep track of your goals and how you did on those numbers because sometimes we can only focus on what we didn't do and that can bring us down. So it's always good to find what we did do well that day to remind us to keep
Mm-hmm.
to show us we're in the right direction, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's stages for real estate agents. Some of them have trouble in the beginning getting started and they don't make it, unfortunately. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
have some success in the beginning. They get to that, say, 20, 24 deal a year range, and they really get stuck there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you have to someone that's trying to get to that next level, say 40, 50 deals a year from that 2025 range?
I will say very important to study the scripts,
Mm,
to internalize them, to have role play partners, because sometimes some people say, I role play by myself. But
mm,
when you role playing by yourself, you may be thinking you're doing things great, but nobody's giving you feedback. And the feedback is very important, very, very important. And also, you learn from other people. little words, little sayings that makes a big difference. So it was a time that I was role playing maybe even over 2 hours per day,
Wow.
and every day
Wow.
until. And I used to say, okay, I'm reading the scripts. It's going to be a point that I'm going to say it without reading it. And at the beginning, without reading, I had it to pick a little, and
Yeah.
then I could do it without looking at it. But sometimes we think we know it. And when you try to do it by yourself, you really don't know it. So you need to keep practicing. Also, getting into a mastermind, having accountability partners, reading books. All of that is very important. Um, I I was never taught to read. I started to read when I went to my ferry.
Mm.
Now I think I read minimum around 30 to 50 books per year. But I used not to read one.
Mm.
Doing the exercises, having goals, things
Yeah.
that you love to do, plans financially, to even put a little bit every month to save is always important, because if you don't do that, time goes by and then nothing is left.
It's
So,
so important. It's so important, and I love the way you're focusing on your health. You focus on your business, but then you're also focused on investing, right? And if you don't take the time to plan that, it can certainly slip by. I'm going to go back to the role playing for a minute. You know, so you've been doing this 25 years,
mhm,
and you're still role playing.
mhm.
Amazing. You know,
And if
I,
I
I
don't role play, it shows. Just
it's such a
thinking.
it's
Mhm.
such a simple thought, but you know, a lot of people have such a hard time with it. Um, and if you're in that 20 to 24 deal a year range, you know, sometimes we think we know what to do, right? But not having that extra set of eyes on us could really help or prevent you from getting to the next level. You know, someone that's been doing this 25 years still practices. And I think of sports where, you know, professional athletes at the highest level, they still practice every day, right? And that's what keeps them at that high level. So that's amazing.
Mhm.
So in New York, you talked about this a little bit. You were actually shut down. You were non-essential for a long
Yeah.
time.
Over
Um,
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And I know you said you were still calling. I got to imagine that must have been tough though, because if no one else is working and you still are, did you get pushback from that, or was it hard to stick with it?
I will say it is not hard,
Okay.
because you already have the habit,
Yep. Good.
but little deep inside, you are afraid that somebody will report you
Sure.
and you get a fine, or they may take your license from you.
Yeah.
But either I do that or I had no business.
You have no business, right?
Mhm.
Good. And you still able to sell homes during that time?
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yeah.
Uh, up to this time, sometimes I still do presentations over the phone and over Zoom more than before the pandemic.
Okay.
Because when people are away, I try to push them, let's do it over the phone or let's do it over Zoom. Nothing better than face to face. But within the pandemic, I got to sell many properties, I would say, that I never met the seller of the house,
Mm,
because I did the presentation over Zoom
on Zoom.
and
Okay.
they got sold.
Terrific.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day is you still had clients that needed to sell, and legally you were allowed to sell. You just had to prospect for them to make that happen. You couldn't just sit there and let the property sit. You had a job to do for them, and you did it. So
That's right.
that's amazing.
And because I did so much that, that also brought me a lot of business for 2021.
I can imagine people
All
were
the
impressed.
deals. Like, I was just looking at my numbers, because the retreat we just came back, Mike told us to find out when was one of your best months.
Yep.
Number of sales, number of listings, number of appointments. And the January to 2021, I closed 14 deals.
Wow.
Mhm.
Amazing. So
We
and
were still in the pandemic. Mhm.
that's that accumulation effect you talked about before, right? You don't always get what you put in today, but over the years it really starts to add up. Love
Correct.
that.
Mhm.
Well, one of the things I've always admired about you is you're very driven to learn and grow. Is that is that something that was just always you, or did you kind of develop that over the years?
That's always me since I
Yeah,
was little.
yeah.
Uh, I was very little when I started to tell my mom, take me to the school. I know how to read. I know how to count. And I was underage even for kindergarten. But I didn't know how to do none of that. But I want her to take me. And then she took me to a private school and they told her, you have to pay, but if she wants to go home, you have to take her and we won't give you the money back. And I insisted, so she had to leave me and never went back. It was
Oh.
funny that I was so happy that I had three younger brothers and it was a school for girls. I used to take them to the school without permission of my mom because I thought that was so good and they wanted to go there too.
That's awesome. So you really turned that desire to learn and grow and really made it a big positive in your business career. So congratulations. It's been really fun to get your advice, watch you have success in your career. As we wrap up here today, what advice would you give to someone who's stuck in a plateau in their business or in a little bit of a funk, right? I think we all go through that at times, right? Where maybe we just don't have the energy we want or the focus we want, and our business isn't doing what we want. What advice would you give in that situation?
Absolutely get better on the scripts,
Mm.
know what to say in every situation, role play and write it down. Talk to people that are doing the kind of business you want to do. Get out of the
Mm.
comfort zone. Call
Mm.
them. They are all very nice. They will be happy to help you and they will be happy to tell you and answer all your questions.
Mm.
So we need to get, and I understand because I'm very shy too. When
Mm.
Robert told
So
me to be
much.
here, it's not the favorite thing for me to do. But we need to get out of our comfort zone. So do that. Read books. You should be reading minimum one book per month, minimum, because all of this keeps open our minds and just making us stronger. Even if you don't feel it right away, when you less expect it, the right thing come out from your mouth. So role play and never stop prospecting. That's something that no matter too much study but no work doesn't help neither.
That's a really
We
good
need
point.
to
That's a really
we
good
need
point.
to put the work, we need to put the action and go to appointments. Of course, go to qualify appointments, but if not qualify appointments, at least go to previews, but only go to previews from people that you feel they are really close by you and they are motivated,
Mm. That's it. That's a really
because
good point.
otherwise you get burned out
Of
going to
course.
see a lot of previews. Yeah, just go the closest to you and to motivated people then maybe they're not ready to give you an appointment.
I love what you said about practice again. It's so simple, but it's so important. And I love what you said about, finding someone that's maybe doing more than you and reach out to them and ask for help or advice or just listen to them. These people are more willing to share than you might think, and there's a lot of valuable insights there.
Mhm.
So what's the best way for people to connect with you? If they have questions about New York real estate, Brooklyn, Queens area.
Oh, thank you, Rob. They can call me. My cell is 718-908-4127. Again, 718-908-4127.
Awesome.
Feel free to
Well,
call me.
Nora, thank you. You've provided so much value for our community today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for thinking of me.
Of course. We're out of time, everyone. If anyone on this call has questions, you want to collaborate more on how we use systems and coaching to help agents on our team, you can shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to help, and hope everyone has a great day. Thank you, Nora.
Bye.